So how does my inner frequency discovery comes about? I was actually in Malaysia a pure science student, and my favorite subject is biology and chemistry. Biology is about the inner mechanism of a human. And similarly for chemistry, a biochemistry. Human is actually a walking biochemistry. And my interest was very aroused because in this body, there are codes and programs that function on its own. As I'm talking now, the body will run on its own. It's amazing. And we have to respect this coding, this program, this landscape, this chemistry. So that got me started. Unfortunately, due to my financial family background, I couldn't go on to tertiary education, and I landed up in banking. But there's a blessing in disguise, because while I was in banking operation, I finally decided to choose human resource. Okay, and in human resource, I discover in the department of selection and recruitment, I explore, okay, the possibility of getting to know my candidates. And I discovered that there is this thing called psychometry. And it was amazing. That's where I first got my exposure on DISC. Okay? And so that got me going that human can actually be simplified into a frequency, into an inner biochemistry, not in the physical sense, but from the psychological aspect, which is what DISC is all about. And I began to see the connection, the corridors between the physical world and the mental emotional world. At this time, parallel to this happening in my life, I was also engaged in study of comparative philosophy. And again, in comparative philosophy, it's all about the study of who and what humans are all about. And in that direction, I began to discover that in Buddhism, they explain in great detail the mindscape, the emotional scape, the mental scape of a human. Very detailed classification, very detailed configurations. So I began to see how in Buddhism, as well as in Eastern philosophy, Chinese philosophy, the corridors of connections between the physical world and the psychology. So inner configuration is a psychophysical configuration, not purely physical, not purely mental, but an interconnectedness. And that's why I use the word meta-biochemistry. So it's an extension of what I know. And as I explore, I begin to see that all of them have half-truth. The Western philosophy of personality has a half-truth. The Chinese philosophy of element has a half-truth. The Indian philosophy of chakra has a half-truth. And so are the various framework philosophy on the inner elements. And I gather all these and make it into inner frequency, where each of these knowledge are being respected. Okay, and I join up into a maze, okay, into a chart, into a framework which is in sync with who we are and what we are. And so that's how the inner frequency develops into a configuration, into a set, into a landscape, into a biosystem. That is what it is. And of course, subsequently, I find that in order to tap into somebody else's frequency, you need a lot of modern technology. And I find, again, in the Eastern philosophy, there is this quality called intuitions. And so I take up on my own to explore this paradigm of intuition. And from this intuition, I'm able to help people to define, to recognize, to understand, and to discern the inner frequency, so that this individual doesn't have to actually do the self-assessment, of course, which they can. Okay. On the other hand, I'm able to tap into their frequency and actually lay out their inner landscape, their inner frequency configurations. So this is how I combine the knowledge and the assessment via intuition. I call this authentic intelligence because it is about a human to another human. It is no longer the AI, what we call artificial intelligence. This is authentic, intuitive intelligence, which is how inner frequency can be discerned in any individuals.